2 judges, including the one presiding over the Senzo Meyiwa trial, have been suspended. The Judicial Services Commission wrote a recommendation to the President calling for judges Tshifiwa, Maumela and Nomonde, Mngqibisa-Thusi to be suspended. The move follows mounting complaints over delays in the delivery of judgments. Joining us via Zoom from Mthatha in the Eastern Cape is Mvuzo Notyesi from the Judicial Services Commission. Thank you so much for your time this evening, sir. Just your reaction to the news of the suspension of those 2 senior judges.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me at this time. I think the JSC welcomed the suspension of the 2 judges. That is in accordance with the recommendations of the JSC that the 2 judges be suspended pending the hearing by the Judicial Service Tribunal of the complaints against them. So the decision is welcomed by the JSC.
Very serious allegations that are hanging over these judges. Excuse me, I did have a little frog in my throat there for a second. We're talking about incapacity, gross incompetence or gross misconduct on the part of the judges, taking into consideration the long delays that they took in meeting these judgments. We cannot underestimate how serious these allegations are for sitting judges.
In fact, definitely this is a gross, it would amount to gross misconduct. These are very serious allegations if they are approved, because the need for speedy delivery of judgment is at the core of the judge's function, because that impact on the administration of justice. So these are serious allegations.
Explain to us how it works in terms of the time that is reserved for within which a judge to make a decision depending on the case. I mean, I'm no expert, but you're looking at certain, in the case of Judge Mngqibisa-Thusi, there were judgments, a total of 20 judgments were outstanding at the time of the complaint against her. The judgments were delayed by between 6 and 27 months, and there were more to follow. And similarly, long delays in judgments in cases in 2018 for Judge Maumela, and there too, the space of time between 7 and 22 months. Is there an average time that a judge is given within which they are expected to knowingly get to a decision? How does it work? Explain to us.
Yes. In terms of the norms and standards, judgments must be delivered at least within a period of 6 months, but the minimum is that within 3 months a judgment must be delivered. But once it reaches 6 months, already that then it amounts to a misconduct, because in 6 months judgment must be delivered. At the core of this is to ensure that there is quick delivery of judgments, there is quick resolution of disputes that are brought before court, and all judges, they are subject to the norms and the standards that have been set out. So there is a time period that is set out. Everybody knows when a judgment must be delivered after a matter has been heard. The judgments in respect of these 2 judgments were way far away from the period that is allowed for at least the delivery of a reserved judgment.
One understands that these kinds of things would generally take time when a claim of this matter is brought against the judge. Can you explain to us how that process works? Why has it taken that long for us to get to this point when you're talking about cases that they were involved in from as far back as 2018?
Yes. First, the process is this. The complaint would be filed either by the parties, that is, whose matters were heard by the judge, or if not, it will be filed by the division of the court. That is, when the judge president files the complaint, he files on behalf of the division where the judgment has been reserved. Now, once the complaint has been filed, it will be processed through the JSC because it must first be referred to Judicial Conduct Committee. The Judicial Conduct Committee will give a hearing to the parties, meaning that the complaint will be sent to the relevant judge. He or she will respond to the complaint. Then there will be a hearing by at least 3 judges of the Judicial Conduct Committee. Once they have heard the matter, they will make a recommendation on whether there is a prima facie case of misconduct of serious or otherwise. Once they make that recommendation, it will be taken to the JSC now. The JSC will consider the recommendation of the JCC, that is the Judicial Conduct Committee. Upon consideration of that recommendation, the JSC may take a decision that the respondent judge be suspended pending the hearing by the judicial tribunal, So that is an elaborate process because at the end of the day, one has to protect the rights of those that are affected, the rights of the respondents. So it is a very elaborate process which must be fair. On the face, which must be fair, all parties must be heard. Some complaints in the process would find out that there is no merit on it or there's a good explanation. So that's why this process takes so long, because it goes stages and stages. As I'm explaining, you start by receiving the complaint. It is referred to the JCC. The JCC will afford parties time to make submissions. It will make its decision, the recommendations. From there, it goes to the JSC. So that is the whole process that is involved. At the core of that process is to ensure fundamental fairness to those that are involved.
Now, we understand in the meantime that Judge Maumela will continue to oversee the case, the trial of the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. How is that decision reached? Because one would think that perhaps now, because of this hanging over this judge's head, that there might be question marks about his performance in that trial. How is that being managed?
Yes, I'll just demonstrate this simply like this. The judge has a part-head matter which has progressed in terms of the stages of the trial. Now, if he is not allowed time to conclude that particular case, the effect is that the case would have to be started afresh before another judge. That will prejudice the parties. That will result in further delays of the finalization of the matter. So it is in the interest of justice that the suspended judge conclude all those matters that were pending before him, so as to ensure that there is no failure of justice in the process. There is no prejudice to the parties. Make an example, the case of Senzo Meyiwa. In that case, many witnesses have testified. It has progressed to some stages. But if now those judges the judge was not allowed to conclude that trial, then it would result in enormous prejudice to the parties. And it will bring about unintended consequences because some witnesses might no longer be available and all that stuff. So it's very important that they are allowed to conclude their matters.
Okay, well,
and remember, when they are suspended, they remain judges. Doesn't mean that they are no longer judges. It's just that they are suspended in the period pending the hearing by the tribunal.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for your insight this evening. That's Mvuzo Notyesi. He is the spokesperson for the Judicial Services Commission, joining us virtually there from Mthatha in the Eastern Cape.